Kira Valdez walked barefoot into Porto Covo fishing village at 6:47 a.m. on September 15, 2019. Her festival wristband still tight around her blood-stained wrists, her Adidas shorts were shredded down to threads. Deep scratches covered her legs, from ankle to thigh, and blood soaked through her white tank top in patterns that forensics would later determine came from at least 3 different sources. None of the blood was hers. The fisherman who found her said she moved like a sleepwalker, staring straight ahead with pupils so dilated her brown eyes looked completely black. When they tried to speak to her, she opened her mouth, but only a clicking sound came out, like she was trying to remember how her tongue worked. 3 days earlier, Kira had been laughing with her 2 best friends from university as they hiked down the jagged coastline of Portugal's Costa Vicentina. Solange Bitter and Naya Chen had flown in from London and Singapore specifically to reunite with Kira, who had been working as a marine biology researcher in Lisbon for 2 years. They had planned this trip for 8 months, booking the same tiny guest house in Vila Nova de Mil Fontes where they had stayed during their study abroad program in 2016. The 3 women were inseparable back then, sharing everything from clothes, 2 secrets to the same terrible taste in Portuguese wine. But something went catastrophically wrong inside that sea cave, and the only person who knows what happened has not spoken a single word in 4 years. The cave itself sits 200 meters north of Praia do Bordo, accessible only during low tide through a narrow opening that requires visitors to crawl on their hands and knees through knee-deep water. Local fishermen call it Gruta dos Sussurros, the Cave of Whispers, because of the strange acoustic properties that make even normal conversation echo in multiple layers. The cave extends roughly 400 meters into the limestone cliff, with the back chamber rising to a cathedral ceiling 15 meters high. Bioluminescent algae coat the walls and patches, creating an ethereal blue-green glow that photographers and Instagram influencers had been discovering for the past 5 years. Solange posted her last Instagram story at 4:23 p.m. on September 12th, showing all 3 friends crouched at the cave entrance with the caption "About to see some magic." The video shows them laughing as cold water splashes their legs, and Naya complaining about getting her new hiking boots wet. Kira can be heard saying, "Trust me, it's worth it," as she disappears into the darkness first. The timestamp on the video would later become crucial evidence, because it proved they entered the cave exactly 47 minutes before high tide, would seal the entrance for the next 6 hours. The guest house owner, Maria Santos, became concerned when the 3 women failed to return by 11 p.m. She had specifically warned them about tide schedules and given them a printed chart showing safe crossing times. Portuguese coastal rescue protocols require a 24-hour waiting period before launching a search, but Santos called the local police anyway. Officer Ricardo Fonseca told her that 3 experienced travelers could easily have decided to camp somewhere along the coast, especially since their rental car was still parked at the trailhead. For 48 hours, nobody looked for them. The break came when Naya's iPhone 11 automatically connected to a fishing boat's mobile hotspot 3 kilometers offshore, sending a burst of cached messages and location data. The phone's last recorded GPS coordinates placed it inside Gruta dos Sussurros at 5:11 p.m. on September 12th, exactly when the cave entrance would have been completely submerged. Portuguese maritime police launched an immediate search, sending divers into the cave system during the next low tide window. What they found inside defied every logical explanation. Solange's left hiking boot sat upright on a dry ledge 80 meters from the entrance, laces still tied, as if she had carefully removed it and placed it there. The boot showed no signs of struggle or damage, and forensic tests found no biological evidence inside beyond normal foot contact. Naya's cracked phone lay 30 meters deeper in the cave, its screen completely shattered but the device still functional. When investigators powered it on, they found 47 photos taken between 4:30 and 5:02 p.m., showing the progression deeper into the cave system. The final photo, timestamped 5:02 p.m., captured something that police have never been able to explain. The image shows a section of cave wall covered in symbols carved deep into the limestone. The symbols appear to be a mixture of geometric patterns and what experts initially thought might be Portuguese or Latin script. But when archaeologists examined the carvings, they determined the symbols were at least 200 years old, possibly much older. The carving technique showed tool marks consistent with iron implements from the 18th or 19th century, yet the symbols themselves matched no known alphabet or symbolic system from that period. Professor Helena Marx from the University of Coimbra's archaeology department spent 3 months analyzing the carvings. She concluded that whoever made them possessed advanced knowledge of limestone composition and carving techniques, because the symbols were cut to a precise depth of exactly 8 millimeters throughout, despite varying rock hardness. The mathematical precision suggested either exceptional skill or the use of guided tools that did not exist 200 years ago. But the truly disturbing discovery was what the symbols seemed to depict when viewed as a complete composition. The carvings formed a rough circle approximately 2 meters in diameter, with symbols radiating outward like spokes on a wheel. At the center was a design that Marx described as 3 human figures in positions suggesting distress or transformation. Surrounding these central figures were repeating patterns that appeared to show water, darkness, and what could be interpreted as celestial bodies or eyes. The entire composition gave the impression of a ritual or ceremony involving 3 participants. When investigators compared the carved figures to police photos of Kira, Solange, and Naya, the physical proportions were unnervingly similar. The cave yielded no other physical evidence. No blood, no clothing fragments, no signs of struggle or violence. The algae on the walls showed no disruption patterns that would indicate people had been pressed against them or had tried to climb. The surfaces. Water analysis found no biological contamination beyond normal marine microorganisms. Even the sand on the cave floor showed only the footprints and drag marks left by the search team itself. Portuguese authorities expanded their search to cover 50 kilometers of coastline in both directions. They deployed underwater robots to explore submerged cave systems and potential air pockets. Helicopter teams scanned every accessible beach, cove, and rocky outcrop. After 6 days of intensive searching involving 200 personnel and specialized equipment worth over €2 million, they had found absolutely nothing. Then Kira appeared in Porto Covo, walking out of the Atlantic Ocean like she had been swimming. For 3 days straight. The fishing village sits 8 kilometers south of Gruta dos Suros, but there is no coastal path connecting the 2 locations. The route would require either hiking inland across private farmland or swimming through some of the most dangerous waters on Portugal's coast. Ocean currents in that area run northeast at an average speed of 3 knots, meaning any swimmer would be pushed away from Porto Covo, not toward it. The water temperature in September averages 18 degrees Celsius, cold enough to cause hypothermia in unprotected swimmers within 4 hours. Yet when paramedics examined Kira, her core body temperature was normal, showing no signs of prolonged cold exposure. The blood covering her clothes and skin presented an even stranger puzzle. Forensic analysis identified blood from 3 different sources, one human, one from a large marine animal, possibly a dolphin or small whale, and one that laboratory technicians could not classify. The unidentified blood contained cellular structures, unlike anything in their reference database, with DNA sequences that showed significant degradation, as if the sample was extremely old. Dr. Carmen Rodriguez, the forensic pathologist who examined Kira, found no injuries that could account for the blood loss required to produce such extensive staining. Kira showed minor scratches and bruises consistent with walking barefoot across rocky terrain, but nothing that would bleed significantly. The blood patterns on her clothing suggested she had been in direct contact with whatever sources produced the bleeding. Yet she displayed no defensive wounds or signs of struggle. Most disturbing was the discovery of sand under Kira's fingernails that did not match any beaches in the immediate area. Geological analysis revealed the sand contained mineral compositions found only in deep ocean sediment, typically at depths below 1,000 meters. The sand also contained microscopic shell fragments from deep-sea organisms that do not exist in coastal waters. How this material ended up under the fingernails of someone who had supposedly been missing for only 3 days remained completely unexplained. Portuguese psychiatrist Dr. Miguel Tavares evaluated Kira for 72 hours immediately following her discovery. His report, later leaked to Portuguese media, described her condition as selective mutism with possible dissociative features. Kira would respond to simple physical requests like raising her hand or standing up, but she would not speak right or make any vocal sounds. Brain scans showed normal activity in all regions associated with language processing, suggesting her inability to communicate was psychological rather than neurological. What disturbed Dr. Tavares most was Kira's reaction to certain stimuli during testing. When shown photographs of ocean scenes, Kira became extremely agitated, showing elevated heart rate and stress responses. But when shown images of the specific cave where she was last seen with her friends, she became completely calm, almost peaceful. Dr. Tavares noted that she would stare at photos of the cave interior for extended periods, occasionally moving her lips as if trying to speak, but no sound would emerge. During her 3rd night in the hospital, nurses reported that Kira was found standing at her window, which faced the ocean, making the same clicking sounds the fishermen had heard when they first found her. When a nurse approached, Kira turned around with what the nurse described as the most terrified expression I have ever seen on a human face. She then returned to her bed and remained completely motionless until morning. Portuguese police conducted extensive interviews with everyone who had contact with the 3 women during their stay. The investigation revealed several strange details that had initially seemed insignificant, but became more troubling in context. The guesthouse owner remembered Solange asking specific questions about local legends and whether any caves in the area had special properties. A shopkeeper in Vila Nova de Mil Fontes recalled Naya purchasing an unusual amount of waterproof bags and emergency supplies, far more than needed for a casual day hike. Most significantly, staff at the Lisbon Marine Biology Laboratory where Kira worked revealed that she had been acting strangely for weeks before her friends arrived. She had been staying late to research historical accounts of unusual maritime phenomena along the Portuguese coast, specifically focusing on reports of missing persons near coastal caves. Her research notes, found on her laboratory computer, included references to 19th century shipping records mentioning strange lights and voices from underwater caverns along the Costa Vista. The investigation also uncovered that this was not the first time people had disappeared near Gruta dos Açores. Local maritime records dating back to 1847 contained 7 separate incidents of fishing boats, reporting crew members who had walked into the sea cave and never returned. In each case, search parties found personal belongings but no bodies. The most recent incident occurred in 1993, when 2 German tourists vanished while exploring coastal caves during their honeymoon. Like Kira's friends, they left behind only minimal physical evidence and no explanation for their disappearance. What connected all these historical incidents was the timing. Every disappearance occurred during September, specifically during the week of the autumn equinox, when tidal patterns create unique conditions along that section of coastline. During this period, the cave entrance becomes accessible for longer periods, and the bioluminescent algae reach peak intensity due to seasonal plankton blooms. Local fishermen had avoided the area during September equinox weeks for generations, though most could not explain why beyond family tradition and bad luck. Portuguese investigators requested assistance from Interpol to search international databases for similar incidents. The results revealed a disturbing pattern of cave-related disappearances along Atlantic coastlines from Ireland to Morocco, all sharing common elements: groups of 2 or 3 people, disappearances during seasonal tide changes, minimal physical evidence, and occasional survivors who suffered severe psychological trauma and could not provide coherent accounts of what happened. But none of the other cases involved survivors who returned covered in unidentifiable blood. Kira remained in psychiatric care for 6 weeks before her parents arranged for her transfer to a private facility in Switzerland. During her final days in Portugal, she began showing signs of improvement, occasionally making eye contact and responding to her name. However, her parents reported that she became extremely distressed whenever anyone mentioned returning to her marine biology research or continuing her life in Lisbon. The Portuguese authorities officially classified the case as missing persons under unknown circumstances, a designation that allows for potential reclassification if new evidence emerges. Solange's and Naya's families hired private investigators who spent over €100,000 conducting independent searches and analyses but found no additional clues about what happened inside the cave. The cave itself was sealed by local authorities in October 2019, officially due to geological instability concerns, though no structural engineering reports were ever made public. Metal barriers were installed across the entrance during high tide, making access impossible except with specialized equipment. The official reason given was public safety, but locals noted that the decision came after several Portuguese government officials visited the site and spent hours inside the cave with scientific equipment. Maritime patrol boats now monitor the area continuously during September, turning back any vessels that approach too closely to the sealed cave. Portuguese authorities cite ongoing investigation as justification for these measures, though the investigation was officially suspended in 2020 due to lack of leads. Kira eventually recovered enough to live independently, but she never returned to marine biology or any career involving water. Her parents moved her to a small town in the Swiss Alps, where she works as a librarian and has reportedly adapted well to her new life. She has never married or maintained close friendships, preferring solitude and indoor activities. However, according to her parents, Kira still experiences episodes where she becomes completely silent for days at a time, usually coinciding with September each year. During these periods, she has been found standing at windows that face west, toward the ocean, making the same clicking sounds the fishermen heard that morning in Porto Covo. When the episodes end, she has no memory of them and becomes distressed. If told about her behavior, Swiss psychiatrists who treat Kira have theorized that her clicking sounds might represent an attempt to communicate something she experienced but cannot express through normal language. Audio analysis of recordings made during her episodes reveals complex patterns suggesting structure and meaning, though no linguistic experts have been able to decode them. The most disturbing aspect of these recordings is that similar clicking patterns have been detected by underwater microphones placed near other coastal caves where people have disappeared. In 2021, marine biologists studying whale communication along the Portuguese coast recorded clicking sounds emanating from underwater cave systems during September tide cycles. The sounds showed remarkable similarity to recordings of Kira during her silent episodes, leading to speculation about possible connections between the disappearances and unknown marine phenomena. However, Portuguese authorities have classified all research data from these studies, preventing independent analysis or publication of findings. The families of Solange and Naya continue to search for answers, maintaining websites dedicated to their daughter's disappearance and offering rewards for information. They have organized annual memorial gatherings that attract other families who have lost people to similar unexplained coastal disappearances. These gatherings have revealed dozens of additional cases that never received widespread media attention, suggesting the phenomenon might be far more common than official records indicate. Yet, despite years of investigation, advocacy, and scientific study, three fundamental questions remain completely unanswered. What happened to Solange Bitter and Naya Chen inside Gruta dos Susurros during those 47 minutes between entering the cave and the tide sealing them inside? How did Kira Valdez survive whatever killed or captured her friends? And why can't she tell anyone about it? And what carved those ancient symbols into the cave wall with such precision that they seemed to predict exactly what would happen 200 years later? The truth remains locked in that sealed cave, along with whatever force transformed three laughing friends into one traumatized survivor who can only communicate in the language of the deep ocean. And every September, as the autumn equinox approaches and the tides shift along Portugal's coast, Kira stands at her window in Switzerland, making those same clicking sounds toward the distant Atlantic, as if calling to something that might still be listening.